Welcome, friends.
To the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Anywho.
Well, fellows.
Hello.
Hello.
Here I am, last day of my quarantine. Soon I will be able to go out and walk around with a bunch of other people with masks. It's happening. It's happening.
Hooray! Have you sewn your own skin yet?
Have I sewn my own skin? Is that a thing I should be doing? Is that a...
Well, I'm just saying, like, you know, you get a little stir crazy, and then things start.
Oh, it's luckily I'm very busy with work. If I wasn't, I don't know how I would possibly get through this. That 2 weeks in a room is a lot. So,
yeah,
I'm not cut out for prison, as I've mentioned. So, a fun show this week.
Yeah.
Doug, you're going to talk about the runaround.
Yep, it's spring is in the air, so I'm going to talk about a different kind of spring that isn't great. So,
well, it's at first, but then every party ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I am going to get to the bottom of almost nothing, but I am going to try to explore Easter.
Yeah, it's going to try. Let's see. It probably will fail. And then we welcome a very special guest who I've been meaning to get on the show for quite a time, but we finally got it together.
This is really cool. Yeah. You guys should look forward to this.
Yeah, and this is a guy named Nate Phelps, and if you don't know anything about Nate and his story, enjoy a very pleasant surprise. And,
right, he is of those Phelpses.
Yes,
is the thing.
Yeah,
so if you've ever heard of somebody protesting at a funeral like the worst kind of human, that's his family.
Yeah, he is not unfortunately related that I know of to Michael Phelps. It is rather Fred Phelps. So anyway, Nate's great.
Yeah, he's great. And we did a segment on the Phelps in a previous, the Westboro Baptist in a previous episode, and apparently didn't cock it up enough that he still came on the show.
No, he literally reached out and said we did a great job. So that's on you, Doug.
Woohoo!
And before we move on, we'd be remiss just to not every once in a while plug. We have merch. You can go to the Heretic on our website, and oh my God, you can get just about anything there. And
you'd be a fool not to.
Be a damn fool not to. Vern is doing the Lord's work, putting all of our segments up individually on the YouTube for the kids with the hippity hop, and you can go there and check that out. And of course, there's the unofficial Facebook group where there is all. Dan sent me a beautiful image of a saint from there today.
Yeah, somebody had their saint made into an image,
and it's beautiful.
Excuse,
and it's very nice.
It's lovely.
All the things. So go engage in all the heresy you possibly can with both hands and eyes wide open.
Yeah. Let's do a show.
Yeah.
Uncle Mark.
Yes.
Now, we three uncles were all raised in the Mormon tradition.
Mormon.
Where only one of us did the right thing, and at age 19, went and served a Mormon mission.
Went and threw a bunch of Book of Mormons away in Honduras.
Not that the pressure wasn't there for the other two of us to go and do it.
Don't
because
tell
there
them.
was rather extreme pressure to do it.
Yeah,
and you know, a lot of people look back with some degree of fondness on their missions. I know I would have died if I had gone on a Mormon mission.
I can't even. My brain won't even allow me to imagine how awful it would be.
2 years in, I mean, Uncle Doug, you got sent to the worst place you could possibly have gotten sent. I probably would have. I would have been desperate to go to some foreign country where I would learn the language, and then they would have sent me to Alabama.
Yep.
And I want to be. If we have any listeners in Honduras, it's a gorgeous country.
It is a great
And-
country.
And this is nothing against Hondurans.
Wonderful people. It's just the country's got a lot of problems, and that's pretty undeniable.
And one of
Says-
them is
says
the
American.
United States of America.
Right. One of them was Uncle Doug, but it got
Yeah.
better.
That's very fair.
They have 99
but-
problems, but one of them isn't Uncle Doug anymore.
But here's the thing: not every high-intensity religion / cult sends their young men off to be the marketing, to be door-to-door religion salespeople.
Nope.
Some
Which is
some
too-
have different
which is a pity.
traditions. It's a shame, really. We could use so many more of those in the world.
What is there some other thing that religions send people to do, though?
Well, let me speak to that, and it is, as Uncle Dan said, and we can get to this near the end. It is an effective retention tool, as is the Mormon mission, paradoxically or counterintuitively. But, well, dear uncles, as we were just talking about before we were recording, the brutal winter frost is broken, the green shoots are sprouting, the trees are full of buds, the birds are singing, and spring is in the air. And, well, to us this means we can at least extend our quarantine to our yards or our patios, or at the very least just open the fucking windows to let the stink out. If you happen to be an Amish kid on the cusp of turning 16 in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, or Wisconsin, the coming spring means something very different. Although not connected by seasons, the warmth in the air has made me want to cast off my bonnet, leave my horse and buggy behind, and party like it's 1699. Today, let's talk about Rumspringa.
Rumspringa!
Woohoo!
Can I tell you, I am ready. Today is my last day of quarantine in Canada. I have not been able to leave my hotel room for 14 days. Wait until Uncle Mark's Rumspringa hits Toronto, baby.
Yeah, you're literally going to go for a walk.
Yes.
Don't play like you're hardcore.
This 53-year-old man is going to go for a walk around the Eaton Center and back. Yeah.
So most of us probably have some knowledge of the Amish practice of Rumspringa from the excellent 2002 documentary by Lucy Walker, The Devil's Playground. For those of you who have not seen the film or don't know about Rumspringa, the film is a dark, unflattering, depressing, and then surprisingly hopeful look at this bizarre Amish practice.
You should totally see this movie.
It's very worth watching.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I'm excited to look it up.
There's I'm not spoiling anything,
It's
but it's
crazy. You can't believe it's real.
It's crazy. But then there's a couple characters who you become very invested in, and they're, one of them is struggling beyond belief with all kinds of things, and you end up really rooting for the kid.
Yeah.
Anywho.
You don't think he's going to make it, actually.
No, you don't. So if there's anyone out there listening that doesn't know, Rumspringa, or running around, is the Amish practice of relaxing the stifling rules and prohibitions of the Amish faith on kids once they turn 16, ostensibly to allow them to enter the wicked world outside and have a look at how we heathens, or as the Amish say, the English, live our wasted lives before returning to the fold and pledging themselves to the faith forever. Most of what is known of Rumspringa in the outside world is that for a time, Amish kids get their freak on and experiment with alcohol, sex, drugs, and modern conveniences before a shockingly high percentage of them return to the fold, eschew the worldly things, and live out lives of sacrifice and toil. So it's an interesting thing.
It's so and the kid, it literally, like a Mormon Rumspringa would be like allowing your kid to watch a rated R movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, right. But this is like whatever. Go do you. Right.
Yeah. And as we'll talk about, there's it has an intended purpose, which it seems to be succeeding at, but it's also massively irresponsible and damaging. So, so
it's perfect for religion.
Yeah. There's
it's
a lot
just fucked in every possible way.
right.
Love it.
There's a lot more to it, and especially to the fact that so many return after being allowed to see how the rest of us live. So let's dive in.
Well,
the
to be fair, it is Ohio.
Well, that's certainly part of it, and,
Right.
and we'll get to that. The practice of Rumspringa traces its roots to the founding of the Amish faith and the origins of the Anabaptist Christian movement. In the wake of the Lutheran Reformation, the Anabaptist movement began around the late 1500s and early 1600s, 15th and 16th centuries in Germany and Switzerland. One of their principal beliefs was that baptism, and therefore membership in the religion, could only be performed on adults who understood the obligation they were taking on. This belief seems downright enlightened compared to, say, the Catholic Church, which baptizes infants as soon as possible. Indeed, the Mormon Church practices baptism at the age of 8 under the obviously mistaken belief that 8-year-olds can give consent to such a ritual.
Yeah.
And are accountable after that.
At that point. All three of us were baptized at age 8, and to the best of my recollection, I did not consent to it. But that's a story for another day. The Amish take this practice even further, believing that consent can't be given until a person is at least 16. But as we'll discuss, it's not as enlightened as all that. The modern Amish faith was founded in the same region of Germany due to a schism in 1693. The new faith was founded by Jacob Ammon, hence the name Amish. The Amish faced some pretty significant religious persecution in the early 18th century because, of course they did, and many immigrated to America, the vast majority settling in Pennsylvania. Because at the time, the other white inhabitants were still subject to the English crown, the Amish still refer to outsiders as English.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah. They retain many of the dress and practices from when they first immigrated, but not all. Their iconic dress and horse and buggy transportation are the most recognizable relics of their origins, as is the fact that they mostly speak, along with English, a dialect called Pennsylvania German or Pennsylvania Dutch. They eschew most modern...
That's always so funny. The whole, like, they mispronounce the Deutsch, and
Yeah.
suddenly they're, I always thought that they were actually Dutch, but...
Exactly. They're not.
No.
But, different time and place.
Yeah.
They eschew most modern conveniences such as electricity, automobiles, and, of course, zippers. But they are not bound by, say, like a rabbinical recitation of banned items. They have adopted many modern practices, especially in healthcare and agriculture. Their self-denial of the trappings of modern life are not so much a reenactment of their old ways, but an effort to prevent modern technology from getting in the way of their practices or endangering the family unit. So, for the Amish to adopt modern practices of, say, pasteurization of milk or inoculation of their children or their cattle is not, at least to them, hypocritical, because things like that, or, say, using manufactured material in home construction, don't impede their religious observance or hinder the family unit as, say, like a television might, right? So, most Amish are still educated in one-room schoolhouses, which provide them with pretty obviously meager educations, and that education often stops at the 8th grade. Put a pin in that for a second.
Yeah, one quick thing about the conveniences, right, which I was kind of stunned to learn about when I was reading about them for some reason, is it is a little bit pick and choosy, isn't it?
Very much.
Like, you kind of can interpret it how you want, I think, as an individual head of family.
Yeah, and each community is slightly different. I didn't want to get into the difference between the Amish and the Mennonites in the context of this conversation, but the Mennonites, the biggest difference is they don't take it as seriously as the Amish as far as electricity and cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, families can kind of make decisions on their own. Communities can make decisions on their own. Some of them have no electricity whatsoever, but they go to the church on Sunday, and the preacher has a microphone with a speaker. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's not hard and fast.
Right.
So
Sorry, you were talking about 8th grade education.
yeah, 8th grade education. So basically, their education stops at the 8th grade. So, like I said, put a pin in that. Because of their belief that if you want to be Amish, you must make the choice as an adult. Therefore, Amish children are not considered Amish. They are certainly raised as such, but the distinction is there. Then when they reach the age of 16, their Rumspringa begins.
No, Ezekiel, you're just because you've got a beard doesn't mean you're Amish yet.
Exactly. That's basically true. There are not exactly hard and fast rules to Rumspringa, and it can vary drastically depending on the specific community or indeed the family. But generally, when a child turns 16, most of the rules of the religion are suspended or loosened. These children are now free to indulge in modern technology like cars, video games, and the internet, and they are allowed to date, although there is at least the hope that they will remain celibate. Drugs and alcohol are not technically allowed, but a blind eye is certainly turned. This again varies greatly depending on the tolerance of the individual family or the specific sect or community you might be in, but that's generally true. The theory of Rumspringa is that every person who wishes to join the Amish faith have a full and complete understanding of what they are giving up, so that once they take their vows and receive baptism, they cannot be tempted by the outside world again, in which case they would be damned forever. The Rumspringa can last as short as 1 or 2 years, or well into a person's 20s.
Whoa.
It can go that long. It ends when basically you make the decision that you're either going to be baptized or you're going to leave the faith altogether. So only at the time of baptism can a person call themselves Amish.
Can you imagine how horrible Rumspringa was in like 1693?
Oh my God!
When the world outside was the same as the world inside.
Yeah.
It's like,
well,
yay!
funny you should say that. Actually,
Wow, it's crazy out here, Dad. Everybody has the plague.
So like I said, the Rumspringa can last as many years as it needs to for the person to get to where they go. So as religious practices go, this one seems somewhat enlightened. One must make an informed choice to join the religion, and all are given ample opportunity to see what the rest of the world has to offer before they do. Hang on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on paper, it looks pretty liberated.
Right.
It's a trick.
It is.
Being tricked.
Yeah, so the deeper you dig into this practice, the less enlightened, the more manipulative, and even the more damaging it can be.
Right.
The Amish have never wished to live close to any major city for obvious reasons, so the vast majority of Amish communities are far off in the pastures and fields of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. When an Amish kid turns 16, they're not off to the big city to go to museums and experience new cultures. The vast majority of Amish kids...
First of all, you just described what my Rumspringa would have been. I'd drive into Akron to go to the Modern Art Museum, right? Like,
Well, it would have been something.
yeah.
Yeah. So the vast majority of Amish kids spend their Rumspringa at home, or at best at
interesting.
at a friend's house only a mile or two away. So in most cases, it's not like these kids are backpacking through Europe or doing a stint for the Peace Corps. And onto that, these kids in most cases have little to no money, so actual travel or even rent are well outside of their reach.
Right.
And except for their vocational training in agriculture or, say, woodworking, they are wholly unfit for a modern workforce, and their education, such as it was, ended at the 8th grade.
I can just see some Amish kid rolling up to a grocery store saying, "Okay, I'm here to churn.
Yeah, exactly.
Put me to work. I'll
I
churn
see
the
on your
fuck
resume
out of
that
anything."
I see that your only experience is barn raising.
Exactly.
I don't know how that applies to our computer company.
Oh, damn it. Well, we needed our barn taken down. I guess, no, I'm not qualified to do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's exactly right. So, going out and getting a job is outside of most of their grasp. Any kind of job that, in the modern world. For the vast majority of these kids, their Rumspringa plays out in their own community with the kids that they have been friends with all their lives, with their disapproving parents and younger siblings looking on. They are allowed to go to parties, which is what... I know, it's crazy. They can go to parties, which is what most of them spend their Rumspringa doing. But again, remember... These kids are 16, 17, 18, 19. Even if they could get to a big city, they could not even go to a bar where at least a bartender could monitor their activities.
Right.
And it's not like there's cool parents in the neighborhood that would let the kids use their basement to party. Everybody's Amish. So these kids are relegated to partying in fields and behind barns. For anyone who's been to a shitty music festival, passing out to carbon monoxide fumes in a manure-strewn field has an expiration date.
Yeah, for anybody who went to raves back in the 90s.
Right.
But in the movie, Doug, remember there was like a straight-up rave
Yeah.
going on in the barn, in old Jacob so-and-so's barn, right?
Right.
And with like colored lights and a sound system and beer, and Dad was next door milking a cow.
Yep.
It blew my
that's
mind.
it. And we'll talk about that because there's a problem with that as well. These kids are pretty much, once you can go and do basically whatever you want. And there's a self-destructive streak in us all. So before we get to that, one interesting thing about the Amish culture is, surprise, it is toxically patriarchal. And
What?
yeah, I know, surprise, surprise.
The hell you say?
And so while on Rumspringa, the boys are allowed to wear modern clothes, which they call dressing English. The girls, although technically allowed to, mostly don't.
Yeah, it's weird. I remember
yeah.
that from the movie, that they're in their little milkmaid outfits at the rave.
Yeah, in their long dresses and bonnets while grinding to techno music and draining solo cups of jungle juice.
Okay.
It's a
I gotta
weird
admit,
thing.
there's something hot about that.
I think.
Hey, everybody's got a kink.
Yeah, Dan just discovered something about himself.
So, like I said, alcohol use is not technically permitted, but is rampant. And
of
course,
sorry, Doug. Do the Amish drink at all?
No.
They don't.
Once you're Amish, you don't drink, drugs, smoking.
Okay.
They're very Mormon, but kind of more extreme,
right?
In that sense,
they're Mormon, but more so.
Yeah, more Mormon than Mormons.
They're a bit more committed to the pioneer shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously, along with alcohol consumption comes cigarettes, weed, and eventually coke, meth, and party drugs. So unsurprisingly, along with that come petty crime, sexual assault, and all the other teen maladies, right?
Yeah.
So imagine being a 16-year-old kid that has not so much as used a cell phone before. Suddenly you can go to a no-holds-barred party where you will, of course, drink like only a 16-year-old can, surrounded by horny boys and girls all the way up to 23. And then when in the wake of it you wake up in the back of a pickup truck, guilt-stricken by the bad decisions you have made, you have to go back to your Amish family home and nurse your first hangover without even the benefit of a hot shower.
Oh.
Yeah.
A journey of cultural diversity and self-discovery, this is not.
God, the sexual predators that must hang out in this sphere, right? Like
in the periphery of the Amish communities, there is a bustling drug business, a bustling.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's all of the things that come along with that are just kind of orbiting these Amish communities. Jeez. But in a way, they wall them in because very few kids penetrate that, what it's orbiting their own community.
Right.
So, like I said, it's not a journey of self-discovery, and not for nothing. How insanely irresponsible is this as parents? Most know exactly what is going on and the myriad inherent dangers involved, from drunk driving to sexual assault to teen pregnancy to STDs, but they let it go on. Unfortunately, there is, as we'll discuss, a very, at least to them, good reason for this. And not for nothing, but while 16 is certainly better than 8 or 0 for an age of consent to join a religion, it is still not an age of consent for nearly anything.
right.
And a sheltered 16-year-old is in no position to deal with the fire hose of confusing emotions around drink, drugs, and sex without some kind of parental support or guidance. This is such psychological trauma that they will take a lifetime to unpack.
Yeah, and especially if they're, that's why I'm suddenly freaked out about, sexual predators like non-Amish people, or even inside why couldn't they be Amish? But a barn full of fucked up 16-year-olds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, who have no idea. They don't know anything about sex. They don't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
And you show up with the Coke, you're suddenly the hero or whatever.
Their one saving grace is they're so insular that you would as an outsider, you wouldn't easily be able to penetrate into that world. But that's not to say that the sexual assault isn't taking place by the 22 and 3-year-olds.
That's what I mean. And I can go get a pair of buttonless breeches and a blue jacket and a hat and walk right into the barn.
So after all that, is it any wonder that after some years wandering this wasteland of guilt, hangovers, and confusion, all in your parents' backyard while they sleep, that upwards of 90% return to become full Amish members?
Crazy.
90%. The numbers vary a bit, but in some of the more rural Amish communities, the retention rate reaches up into the high 90s. Wow. These poor kids, hobbled educationally and intellectually, are blasted in the face with the worst and most destructive parts of being a teenager with no context, support, or guidance. And not for nothing, it's not like any of them have an out even if they want it. They have no network, no options,
no money,
no support, no money outside of their cloistered community. And if they opt to leave, they would be, and are, for those who have escaped, shunned by their community. So I can only imagine that it's a big jump for an 18-year-old with nearly no education, no relevant job skills, no knowledge of how a computer works, and no place to go, to walk away from all their family and friends and make their way into what seems like a preposterously hostile world. Yet some do, and I doff my cap to that level of bravery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. So
that's hardcore to be able to just, because you're right, it's such a trap. It's this thing of like you get to do whatever you want. However, we're going to give you no training on how to deal with life. We're going to give you nothing that would be useful to you.
Yep.
And then of course you're going to come back and be like, yeah, that's no good.
Yeah.
I guess I do want to be Amish.
It is
the options are Amish or
a
that
spiral.
horrible life that you just put me through.
Yep.
I guess, that binary is stupid.
Yep, and it is the illusion of free will, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's what makes the retention rate so high. We'll get there. So when you watch The Devil's Playground or any of the other documentaries about Rumspringa or the Amish, it does remind you how difficult that lifestyle is. If you want to see in the dark, you have to light a lamp or a candle. If you want hot water, you have to fetch it from the well and boil it. If you want to shoot down to the store, you have to hitch up a horse. It's a brutal, unforgiving lifestyle. And don't get me wrong, if you want to live that way as an informed, enlightened adult, more power to you. I'm sure there's a quiet satisfaction that comes from living that way, but that's
even
not
a
what's happening here.
smugness.
What's that?
There's even a smugness that you can have when you live that way.
Truly. In the wake of the documentary, The Devil's Playground, some Amish recognized the potential psychological damage that Rumspringa can cause and allowed drug and alcohol counselors to meet with kids that were about to start Rumspringa, which is a good thing, but it was very short-lived. Although not fully verboten by the religion, counseling is not exactly encouraged. So the damage continues, mostly undiagnosed. This goes for teen pregnancy and STD transmission as well. One last crazy thing about this story. You can go join the Amish if you so choose, but they are doing nothing to recruit you, and joining is a steep hill. Their growth is almost entirely, and almost is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this sentence, due to their birth rates, which average 7 children per household. Which that's a crazy high average.
Yeah.
In 1992, the Amish U.S. population was roughly 130,000. Today, it's upwards of 340,000.
Whoa!
Wow.
Yes. So along with those bonkers birth rates and lower infant mortality rates than they've ever had in their history, Rumspringa is working, and working fabulously. At a time when many far more liberal religions are bleeding membership, especially youth members, and especially in the United States, perhaps the most conservative and difficult religion is growing at ridiculous rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is in large part because of Rumspringa. Given the quote unquote choice of any religion or lifestyle available, 90% of Amish children choose to live without electricity and ride in a horse and buggy.
It's familiar, right? It's a world that makes sense to them when they were not trained how to live in the other one. It's such a setup.
It's fine-tuned psychological manipulation. And it's one generation just inflicts it on the next. This is going on right now. And the Amish, as a culture and as a people, have no incentive to reform or reject this practice. It's working too well. Yeah, so, and like you said, Uncle Dan, one of the reasons the retention rate is so high is that the Amish believe they've made a choice, right? They've been given options. They've chosen this lifestyle. And as hard as it is, it's what I want. It's what I chose. And so they retain so many of their people. It's crazy how it works.
This is a topic for another time, but there's a really fascinating 60 Minutes episode. You're talking about they don't proselytize. You can join, but there is no effort to find members from outside.
None.
Right.
And so they have a high incidence of some very boutique birth defects.
I was going to get to that, but I didn't. But yeah, some very strange.
Yep.
Very unfortunate birth
So one of
defects.
the leading experts that some Amish people have pooled money, built a little clinic, and they brought one of the leading geneticists from somewhere to work with their community. And these kids have insane conditions. And then they talked to some Amish elders and said, now that you're aware of this situation, will you change? Will you try to develop a genealogy system like the Icelanders have, right? Where you can try to avoid close relationships. And they all just went, no. So
there you go. What a great group they are.
Yeah. So it
But
all reminds
it's real
me
cute
of
to see them in their buggies.
Yeah, totally. It all kind of reminds me of Christopher Hitchens' famous quote about free will. Yes, I have free will. I have no choice but to have it.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, it's an illusion and a manipulation, but it's effective.
All right. Well, I'm late for a barn dance, so I will see you guys later.
Bye.
Right. Bye.
Uncle Mark,
Yes.
as we've talked about already, the spring is in the air.
You've caught me with my gathering basket, collecting daffodils.
Skipping through the fields. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Collecting daffodils in the hotel room in which you are currently
I have
quarantined
clearly
and not
gone
allowed to
completely mad.
Yes, in this time of year, one's thoughts turn to daffodils, eggs, rabbits, I guess. All it makes is sense.
All it makes is sense.
Well,
That sounds like a beautiful omelet, by the way.
it does.
The
I
daffodil
don't know if
rabbit.
you've ever had a Hasenpfeffer omelet, but it is to die for.
I went to St. Croix one time. No, it was Vieques. I was down there. You were down there, Mark.
Yeah.
And we went to an organic farm, and they raise rabbits as a protein source because rabbits grow incredibly fast. They breed a lot, and there's this food to protein ratio that's very high. And we were walking through this organic farm, like, oh my god, I could so do this. I love this. And we walked past the rabbit cages, and it was just full of white little bunnies.
Oh.
And I'm like, that would be the end of my first day on the farm, is me just running with 2 armloads, like Clarice with the fucking the lamb.
The lambs. Tell me about the rabbits, John. Well, yes, it is that time of year. It's officially spring for all the right side up parts of the world. For those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the time of rebirth, the time when we shake off death and gloom of winter, and life begins again. Here in our fair city, as you say, some early flowers are starting to bloom, buds are forming on the trees and bushes, and some overeager willows are trying to show off by getting leaves before everybody else. It is 100%, unequivocally, without a doubt, the best time of year. Now, I recognize that others may disagree, and I forgive them for their wrongness.
I would say with this after this particular winter, I think we're all looking forward very much to this spring.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
And of course, because this is the time of the world coming back to life after having seemed dead, this is the time when we celebrate Easter, when our Lord and Savior rose from his grave after crucifixion. Now, obviously, that didn't actually happen because, forgive me, Jon Snow and zombie fans, people don't actually come back after they've died. But this is a really big and wildly confusing holiday for Christians, and we need to talk about it. Now, Uncle Doug, I don't want you to be mad at me.
Okay.
I realize that I am kind of treading on your territory here. You've covered a bunch of aspects of Easter already on this show, from the competing narratives of the crucifixion in episode 27, to the origin of the Easter Bunny in episode 131, to Easter Island just a few episodes ago in 178. You've been dancing around this subject quite a bit, but we've never tackled the holiday itself, so with your kind permission.
None taken.
Well, and I have a nice name for it. I had a roommate that used to call Easter Crucifizzle Resurrizzle. Sounds like you have a mouthful of fluid there. So.
Oh my God! I almost did a spit take. That was good. That's really funny. Okay, so yes, Easter is the celebration of Jesus being resurrected, or resurrizzle,
Resurrizzled.
However you say it in your culture.
However Snoop would say it is what happened.
And at least here in the United States, we celebrate with pastel colors, candy, eggs, and bunnies, Jesus stuff. And then maybe you go to church and hear or show your kids a movie with a gruesome depiction of torture and murder. Now, I will surprise exactly 0 of our listeners to learn that the reason those two ideas, the murder and resurrection of Jesus and the distribution of brightly colored confections, seem so unrelated is because they are unrelated. They are the combination of totally disparate celebrations into a single bizarre Franken holiday, just like pretty much all of our national traditional festivities.
A holiday that John Oliver calls Shitty Christmas.
Yeah, indeed. So let's try to trace a few of these things back to their origins. I will start with the name of the holiday because I find it so weird. In English, it's Easter. And in Germany, it's the related word Ostern. Throughout the rest of Europe and most of Christendom, though, the names of this holiday all trace back to the Greek word Pascha, which is a transliteration of the Aramaic/Hebrew word Pesach, which is Passover. So, one interesting tidbit is that in an extremely rare moment of concurrence, all of the Gospels of the New Testament manage to agree that Jesus was crucified around Passover. But for all but one of them, the so-called Last Supper is a Passover Seder. I learned that from you, Uncle Doug.
Oh, you're welcome.
Then, Paul, sneaky bastard that he was, wrote in his letter to the Corinthians that, quote, Christ is our Pascha, which represented the very first time that Christians took somebody else's holiday and said, fuck you, this is ours now. A tradition which continues to this day. But yes, the Greek Pascha spread to the surrounding languages and then wormed its way into Latin, which disseminated it out to all of its descendants. So in Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese, for example, it's spelled differently, but all pronounced something like Pascua. In French, it's Pâques. Almost everywhere in the Christian world, they basically call it Passover. They may not realize that that's what they're calling it, but that's basically what they're calling it. But, you know, it's the Jesus kind of Passover.
They should stop that. They,
right?
Like, look, the Jews have their own problems, but let them have their shit. Just stop this, stealing all their stuff.
No. I believe that the traditional answer is no. But as we say, this is the Jesus kind of Passover, so you don't have to eat all of the weird stuff and hide the crackers and shit.
Right.
So why is it Easter in English? Well, the word itself comes from the Anglo-Saxon word Eostre, which is the name of an ancient goddess. Maybe. Now, there's some argument about that among scholars, but I think they're just probably being grumpy and ignoring a lot of stuff. The fact is that there isn't a lot known about Eostre. There's a little tidbit from an 8th century monk named Bede, B-E-D-E, where he rather snootily delights in the peasantry, still using the word Eostermonat, or monath, to refer to the month that the educated and erudite folks like him call Paschal month, which he rendered in the Latin as Paschalis mensis. He said that Eostermonat was, quote, named after a goddess of theirs named Eostre, in whose honor feasts were celebrated in that month. Now they designate that Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite by the time-honored name of the old observance. And that's kind of it. Like the rest we have to speculate about. And there are people who speculate, by the way, that Bede's account, he could have been made up from whole cloth, too. So we do have famous German folklorist and nursery rhyme Bruder Jakob Grimm in his book Deutsche Mythologie, or German Mythology. He connected the name Eostre to the old High German word for Easter, Ostara, which he was pretty sure was the name of an old pagan goddess. But stuff gets so blurry here that all we have is best guesses. When one of the Grimm brothers tells you something, you believe it. Otherwise, they'll write you into a fairy tale, and you'll go down in history as a sad frog who eats poop and tries to trick children or something.
And you get your thumbs cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we think that Ostara was the goddess of the spring and the sunrise. Linguists think they can trace the name all the way back to Proto-Indo-European goddesses. There's a goddess of the dawn that they think they can trace it back to, whose name they're pretty sure they have reconstructed as... I have no idea how to say that. It's Huesos. I don't know how to pronounce it. It has a 2 in it. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce a word that has a 2. But they theorize that this goddess could have been the origin for the German Ostara and the English Eostre, and they theorize, do you see what's happening here? That the connection might be made through a goddess called Austro in the Proto-Germanic language. Now, one thing we think we do know is that this goddess of the dawn shares an origin with, or perhaps is the origin of the English and German words for east. Because the dawn is in the east. So, there's that. There has been a lot of theorizing about this goddess for whom the holiday about Jesus is named, but none of it is remotely solid. A German named Adolf Holtzmann also wrote a book called Deutsche Mythologie, no word on if the Grimm estate sued, in which he theorized that the German traditional connection between Ostern, that's their word for Easter, and the rabbits or hares had something to do with the hare being sacred to Ostara. Now, he then connected that to Easter customs in Leicestershire, England, which have a bunch of rituals named after hares. And maybe he's right. Holtzmann also theorized that the original sacred animal was likely a bird, but then changed to a rabbit. This was his way of explaining why the bunnies lay eggs. Now, my interpretation of that is that over time, the traditional animal changed from bird to rabbit, but they liked the egg part of the tradition, so they kept it. But, that sounded juicy to somebody. And from that statement came a bunch of neo-pagans and their fun belief that Eostre found a bird wounded on the ground and in a moment of mercy turned it into a hare. But unfortunately, I guess she kind of half-assed it. So it didn't get to go. Her magic didn't get to all of the inside bits. So, ta-da!
Is this somebody's
eggs.
real idea?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. The Wiccans and the pagans are convinced of a lot of these things.
Well, if they wanted an egg-laying mammal, I'm surprised we didn't end up with the Easter platypus.
Which is what we should have, but their Easter is upside down,
But
and so
Australia wasn't invented yet.
Yeah, well, and Australia. No, all of this stuff is new.
Oh.
Like the story of Eostre finding the wounded bird. That's a modern invention,
Interesting.
and that launches us into a whole other thing: the modern Wiccan and pagans. Because look, whatever you call it, this holiday falls right around the vernal equinox, and as you can likely guess, So, as you know, an equinox is the day when the Earth's axial tilt is parallel to the sun, so that the nights are equally long in the northern and southern hemispheres. That's equinox. Nox means night. Well, Wiccans and pagans love days like that. Ostara is the name of one of the 8 sabbats or Sabbaths or whatever that make up the pagan Wheel of the Year, which is shockingly still hosted by Pat Sajak. That guy just will not stop. Now, the neo-pagans and witches have invented a bunch of different traditions around this holiday, and will now tell you with confidence all about Eostre and Ostara or whatever, the goddess. But you'll be shocked I say, to learn that it's all just made-up bullshit. Well, I mean, all of religion is made up bullshit, but this is all, like I said, modern inventions, in spite of their belief that they are practicing ancient magics.
Oh, funny.
So, they'll gather and have a bonfire and cast spells and use springtime weeds as magical herbs, and God help you if you're anywhere near Stonehenge during, or anything like it during
Or any
Ostara.
henge.
Yeah.
Any henge. If you are near a henge during
you want
Ostara,
to avoid henges on an equinox.
you will be overwhelmed by doofuses in tablecloth robes and sport sandals.
The weaponized patchouli it'll take you down.
It's
take
a
you down.
dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
It's a didgeridoo, is what I've always said. The drum circling can be overwhelming too. So that's it. There's really not much more to this. I was excited. I went into this thinking that I was going to learn about a new god, and I was going to have a whole bunch to say. And the truth is that, and I went and I listened to podcasts by Wiccans and pagans and stuff just to hear what they had to say about this time. And I listened to 2 and had to stop partway in, and I was like, why aren't they actually getting to the story here? And that's when I realized, and now I realize it's because they don't have one, because we don't know jack shit.
They can listen to ours and understand now.
Right, exactly. So go out there and make up a story about a god. It's springtime. Maybe take off your clothes and run around naked a little bit. It's good for the soul.
Yeah, have a rabbit egg omelet. It's delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's roll out of here.
Oh boy, you guys.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
We skipped thanking patrons last week because our show had already run far too long. We were ridiculous,
And we didn't think that it would bunch up on us, but boy, it seems to have, huh, Dan?
So we've got a lot of people to thank. Now, for those of you who don't know what a patron is, it's someone who is amazing, has their heart in exactly the right place, and then they go to howtoheretic.com and they click on the support us, and it takes them to the Patreon, and they give us their money. And that's an awesome thing to do, and we've got so many people to thank. So thanks go to Michael, Christopher, Steve, Daniel. I got to make sure I'm not just breezing over people that need to have saints and stuff. Annika, Crystal, Nicholas, Sean, Mike Lee, Mike, we'll just say Mike. This one is
Mike
the boy
Lee,
who
the
cried.
Utah senator, is a patron now.
Yes, Mike Lee, the Utah senator. No, it's actually Mike Lee's forehead sweat. That's who it is.
Because I was going to say, if Mike Lee, you're a fan of this show and a patron, I want you to stop.
Take your garbage money and fuck
Just
off.
stop listening and stop doing all the things you're doing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We also have the boy who cried WTF, a simple mango farmer. That's lovely. Oh, no. Oh, God. We need to give a saint to the mango farmer, so never mind. Damien and Eric. Quick, Uncle Doug, the mango farmer needs a saint.
Oh, my God. Mango Farmer, your saint is Saint Horatio P. Huff and Puff, the incontinent. And he is the patron saint of reverse mortgages, which I believe he is not the only patron saint of reverse mortgages. But, you can never have more than one. Just like a reverse mortgage. Call me.
Boom.
He's the patron saint of event planners who only got there because of nepotism. And left-handed lobsters.
Which is a surprisingly large number.
Yeah, it's a saint without a lot to do, but it's good to know he's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Uncle Mark,
Yeah.
you need to give a saint to eat you like a burger.
Jesus. That just really knocked me off my pins for a second there. All right. Eat you like a burger?
Eat you like a burger.
Eat you like a burger. Your
It's like
patron...
rock you like a hurricane. Come on now.
That's right.
No, I'm feeling it. That your patron saint is Saint Aardvarkus of Antwerp, and that is the patron saint of full contact algebra, dear John letters, and any liquid meal that can accurately be described as both a soup and or a consommé.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, good one.
That's we're rocking and rolling.
Top
and
shelf
then we're not done yet, and not by a long shot, because we have some heavens to dole out.
Oh my gosh.
Yay!
So you know what? I'll take the first one. My heaven goes out to Jewish monk. So Jewish monk, look, you have been you are now being one of our top tier patrons. You have earned yourself a heaven, and heaven you shall have. None of this looks good at first, but then turns awful nonsense either. I'm going in the opposite direction. This one seems bad at first, but then, well, it might stay bad. I'm not sure, but that's up to you. I think it's good. Anyway, Here's the thing, Jewish monk. When you die, and die you must, you're going to stupid heaven. Now, please withhold judgment as I explain. Yes, when you die, everyone around you will be entirely vacuous. Dim bulbs, the lot of them. Just a shimmering sea of simple-mindedness. But, and this is the key, you'll be every bit as witless as they are. I know, we're trained in this society to value intelligence and logic, and I think those are fine qualities, but they're not the be-all and end-all that we tend to make them, especially considering how bad even the smartest of us are at using these big brains. Consider, for example, 69-year-old theoretical physicist Paul Frampton, who was duped into smuggling cocaine by someone pretending to be a supermodel online. Where was your big brain then, Paul? Anyway, that's not the only... That's the thing about your heaven, Jewish monk. Nobody there is burdened by genius. Nobody questions their lot. Nobody gets themselves into a tither about this or that world problem or philosophical dilemma. It's just a bunch of happy people bumbling around enjoying their eternity. It's not dangerous. There are no cars to hit you or knives left lying around in precarious places. And if there were, it's heaven. You're already dead. Nothing can hurt you. So do all the stupid things. See what it feels like to kick yourself in the face. Try cooking Pop-Tarts in motor oil. Say whatever's on your mind to anyone you see. They won't mind. They don't know any better than you do. Nobody gets offended about anything because nobody has the wherewithal to judge anybody else or even worry about themselves. There are no wrong turns or bad choices, no expectations or demands, just curiosity without the capacity for fear or disappointment. Welcome to heaven. Enjoy.
Wow, that was a journey.
Yeah, that's lobotomy heaven. That's awesome.
You took me there, and I'm thinking, I want to go to there.
Yeah.
Yeah, love
it.
it.
I think I just described my actual heaven, so there you go. And then, Uncle Doug, I believe you also have a heaven to dole out.
I do indeed, and I want to make two things clear. The name of the heaven, the name of the person receiving this heaven is if I, Jane Dickweed, gets it, so should you. I assume that means both the vaccine and the joke, but I can't tell. And I want to make clear that I wrote this. I did write this heaven for last week, and our show ran too long, which is before some more news came out that makes this heaven all the more apt.
Good.
Yeah. But I got there first. So, well, if I, Jane Dickweed, gets it, so should you. I'm just going to call you Jane from now on. When in exactly 11 days, 4 hours, and 16 minutes, you are crushed by the collapsing clock tower that ironically you were looking up at to see if it had been 11 days, 4 hours, and 16 minutes since you heard this, the world goes dark. But not for long. The darkness quickly fades away to a blinding white light. Exactly how white? You're about to find out. The blinding light gives way to two enormous gold and mother-of-pearl gates stretching up to the blue sky full of white puffy clouds. As your eyes focus, you see a man in white robes with a long white beard standing at a golden lectern. This can't be. Peter in front of the pearly gates? It's a sight so stereotypical that you assume you must still be alive and hallucinating. This can't be what the actual heaven looks like. Peter smiles wanly, as though he senses your reaction. Come forward, my dear, it's okay. You step up to the lectern, and Peter opens what at first seems like a giant book of your life's works, but then you realize is more like a briefcase. He removes a small glass vial with a cotton swab inside. He pulls out the swab and says, "Open your mouth, please." So caught off guard are you that you do, and Peter swabs the inside of your cheek. He places it into the vial and slides it into a small hole in the lectern, which emits a pleasing light when he does. After a few awkward seconds, there is a ding, and a female voice says, "Sufficiently white." "Ah," says Peter, "congratulations and welcome. You deserve this." He extends his arm as the two gates crack open slowly and swing open. Yes, you have just quite literally been judged by the color of your skin, not the content of your character. Bewildered, you step through the gates to see row after row of enormous, tasteless McMansions, punctuated by golf courses. Yes, heaven is quite literally a gated community. You stumble forward trying to make sense of it all, and you notice several women, white women, all out for a stroll. Each of them has a gold-plated AR-15 slung over their shoulder and a little toy poodle prancing along at their feet. As they pass each other, you hear one of them greet the other with, "I deserve this," to which the other responds, "I deserve this." You realize that each of these women are identical and somehow familiar. You focus in on a couple of them and try and figure out where you know them from. Each has their platinum blonde hair pulled back in various aggressive ponytails, with makeup that looks like they're going to a rave in 1998 for some reason. "I deserve this. I deserve this." Wait a minute, you think. Is that Meghan McCain? Before you finish the thought, you hear a voice right behind you. "Welcome. I deserve this." You wheel around to see another one right behind you, and yup, it's Meghan McCain. She stares at you expectantly. "Hello." Her face darkens a bit, like you've breached some sort of protocol. "I deserve this?" you manage to mumble. Suddenly she smiles, and the smile returns to her face. "Here's your gun. I deserve this," she says as she hands you a gold-plated AR-15 with mother-of-pearl handles and a cherry wood stock. You hesitantly take the gun and again see her expectant look. "I deserve this?" She smiles as she turns on her heel and walks away, saying in parting, "I deserve this." You probe deeper into the neighborhood. Each time you pass another Megan, she smiles at you and says, "I deserve this. Would you like a book deal?" Or, "I deserve this. Would you like to host a TV show?" Or, "Would you like to be in a movie? I deserve this." Each time you politely refuse, the Megans stare at you until you respond with, "I deserve this." Block after block, day after day, year after year, eon after eon, this is all there is. This is not white heaven or even white privilege heaven, though it's both of those things. This is Meghan McCain's heaven. You are cursed to walk the streets of an all-white, all-Meghan gated community being offered things you don't deserve and didn't earn, all the while proclaiming that you do. As the reality of your bland, banal, privileged, and pointless eternity sets in, you can't help but think, this isn't right. I don't deserve this. Well, Jane, to be fair, neither does she.
Wow.
I think that Doug is trying to work out his incredible attraction to Meghan McCain and her whole worldview via the podcast. I think that's all this podcast does for him.
Just working through it bit by bit. We're happy to help, Doug. It's fine.
Yeah.
Did you know that her middle name, her name is Meghan Marguerite McCain?
I didn't, but it doesn't help.
That's a lot of M's.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
That's awfully ethnic, I have to say. I'm a bit surprised that she's allowed at the country club with a name like that, but there you go.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, thanks again once more to all of our patrons.
Thank you.
Yep,
we love you so much. Please go ahead and give us your money if you want to. It's a wonderful thing to do. And if you can't afford to do that, that's also fine. But go ahead and give us 5 stars wherever you can find a way to do that. And that's also great.
Stars are free.
That's right.
Let's move on, shall we?
Moving on. Well, Uncle Dan.
Hey, well, yeah, hi there.
Howdy. I don't know if you know this about me and your esteemed Uncle Doug, but our dad was kind of an asshole.
Well, okay, yes.
You've told me on a sliding scale.
I was going to say, you've told me some stories, and he sounds awful.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe he can be topped. I believe that the asshole nature of your father isn't the pinnacle.
Well,
of daddy assholeness.
You know, we probably should. I don't even know why I brought that up. We'll talk about it.
It seems completely irrelevant.
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time because we brought on a guest who wouldn't know anything about that. You guys, let's welcome our friend Nate Phelps to the conversation here. Nate, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. Now, if you don't know who Nate is, you know who his dad it was.
The name Phelps might be a hint.
Yeah. So Nate here is the son of Fred Phelps, who was the founder and chief cook and bottle washer and lead screamy person of the Westboro Baptist Church. That's correct, right?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. Well, I think our work here is done. So you, Nate, you are one of, I know, like you, I'm a middle child. Okay. So I get it. I understand. I'm the middle of 4, which is kind of hard to do, but it worked out. You're the middle of 13. So same, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
And-
sixth out of 13. So
Wow.
Sheesh.
That is
And,
not that even Mormons go, wow, that is a big family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
truly.
Mormons are like, dude, slow your roll.
well, see, back in the 60s when we were out selling candy, someone would say, well, are you guys Catholic? Of course, I never understood that till I grew up. But apparently that was the thing with the Catholics, right?
Yeah. Catholics and Mormons are famous for that, and the Westboro Baptist Church apparently. So
Yeah.
you're in good company. So how many of your siblings are still active in the church?
I would see there are 3 that left for sure and gone, and then 1 is kind of wavering in between. So there's 9 solidly involved still.
Sheesh.
And the Westboro Baptist Church, if I'm correct, it's interesting. I told a friend of mine that you were going to come on the show, Nate, and this friend of mine had this sense that Westboro Baptists was like a huge, like nationwide church. They get so much press that they thought this, this must be this huge thing that has congregations all over the place. That's not really the case, is it, Nate?
No, not at all.
How
Well,
how many members would you say the Westboro Baptists had in their prime?
Well, I wasn't there. I mean, they were claiming early on when they were doing all those the picketing that they had upwards of 100. But when I was growing up there, it was our family and 2 other families. That between those 2 other families, there were a total of 11. So we had like 25 warm in the pews every Sunday.
Wow.
Between those 3 families. And then, of course, my siblings grew up and had kids. So they were claiming upwards of 100. But I would say today, I'd be surprised if they had more than 40 or 50 because so many of the second generation has left, right?
That's crazy.
It's super weird. Like I can't believe people don't want to join.
right.
What? Yeah.
It looks like a ton of fun.
I'll say this. It's impressive how much noise that tiny little church has been able to make.
Yeah, it reminds me of the band Rush. Big guys and they're raising hell.
Yeah, they've raised a lot of hell. Now, I think if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Nate, but I feel like your family's real debut in the national media happened in 1988 when they protested at the funeral of Matthew Shepard. Is that kind of
was it 88 that
or sorry,
happened?
98.
I was going to say because they actually started in 91. And you talked about that. There was that Gage Park was apparently there's a publication out there that if gay people wanted to meet, there different places they could meet, and that Gage Park was on that. So that's why he started doing it. That
was the park where there was apparently rampant homosexuality that became your father's first kind of cause celeb.
Yeah, but for those first years, it was basically a local thing. And the funny thing is, Kansas in general and Topeka specifically is a very conservative town, but somehow they managed to still piss people off with their message in that conservative environment because of the nature of the message. They have those nasty signs. And then as soon as anybody in public would speak out against them, they would attack them. And that was one of my dad's primary strategies was you'd attack the individual instead of the issues, right? So, yeah, they were very well known there in Topeka and then in some of the surrounding areas. But then that Matthew Shepard passed and that decision because they were up and running by then with the picketing capacity, and so that's they decided to go and picket at Matthew's funeral.
Well, you describe. I'm sorry, I'm going to correct you. You described those signs as awful, and I think graphic design was your father's passion. They're one of the most impressive repositories of clip art I think anywhere, certainly in the lower 48. But we actually have a couple of those, Nate. We got some from Shirley.
Oh, were they personalized?
No. They happened to come through Salt Lake City. I'll make the story very quick. They came through Salt Lake City a bunch of years ago, and a friend of mine who's a photographer, we went to see them because it is a spectacle, right?
Right.
And he snapped a bunch of, semi-professional photographs of them and offered to trade them for some of the signs. And Shirley was like, absolutely, we want photographs. So, and we have signs. So we made a trade.
That's right.
Mine says God hates fags on one side and God hates Jews on the other. You take your choice. You kind of determine who's approaching and you flip the sign and you're covered, right?
Yeah. Mine says God hates you, which I truly love just because it's humbling, I suppose, to know that there's a personal God and he doesn't like me.
So you were out of the church long before the Matthew Shepard incident, right?
Right.
So for you, what was that like to watch that go down? Because it was such a huge press spectacle and it was such a high profile event, to see your family doing something that just atrocious in the national media.
Yeah. So maybe if I give it a little anecdote, it'll best describe it. So after I left, I was, moved to Southern California and generally didn't talk much about this except to, my brother Mark had also left. So we were working together. And so there was a small circle of people who knew at least some of what it was like growing up there and what he was like. And I talked to a couple of counselors about it. But one of the things that I ran into a lot was when someone said, well, why don't you talk to your family? I said, well, I don't have a choice. And generally the attitude was, well, yeah, actually you do. And I would say, well, yeah, actually I don't. And so there was that disconnect. People couldn't understand that kind of extreme circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then this suddenly showed up in the national media, and by then I was going to an evangelical free church, and I had like 5 or 6 couples that we were close friends with. And I walk into one of our meetings. We used to meet every Friday night just for fellowship, and I walked into one of the meetings and I point to this article and I said, see, this is what I'm talking about. It was like finally people could figure out, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, people finally believed just how monstrous a situation you'd escaped, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have a logistical question about the church, which is how, I know it's tiny and it's basically down to like family members now, for the most part. How do they pay for this? How do they travel 300 days a year? Right. And to all over the country. Right. I don't understand where they get their income from.
Well, now I can't speak to this with 100% certainty because it's hearsay, but talking to some of the members who had left, they, of course, my father, you didn't have an option. You paid the tithe, which means 10%.
Mm-hmm.
But what he would often do is when he wanted something big to happen, he would gather the congregation and he would present it as though we're having a collaboration and we're going to make this decision on our own. But ultimately, he basically said, okay, everybody's going to give at least 30%. And you got to understand, 11 of my siblings are attorneys or they've got law degrees.
Mm.
They've got respectable jobs. And then you've got the next generation and many of them also have good paying jobs. So if you crunch the numbers, I remember sitting down at one point and the money is significant when you take 30% of that kind of total revenue. They've got a lot of money that they can use to move around.
So these are obviously, they've got law degrees and stuff, and there's plenty of stupid lawyers out there. We've seen that during the election cycle here, but these are pretty high functioning people. Yeah. So there's a professional life outside of the church. It just seems it's so all consuming that you wouldn't have time to do anything else.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's part of the marketing genius because so much of that is smoke and mirrors. First of all, they've got that website and they tally up, if they make a phone call or if they hang a sign out the window as they're driving down the road, that they count that as a picket event, right? So they've got these picket events in the tens of thousands. And then they'll send like one adult with 3 kids. Well, the kids aren't earning the money. They're not tied to an employment schedule, that kind of thing. So they can create the appearance, and they did a really good job of creating the appearance of this really large operation that had unlimited resources, right?
That is exactly what happened here in Salt Lake when I saw them. It was Shirley and two teenage siblings and a couple kids.
Yeah.
They showed up, they had their signs, and when the press showed up and took some pictures, they evaporated. We're off to the next thing. Yeah. But in the Tribune, in our paper, when you saw it, it looked like a robust, contentious protest. I mean, you're absolutely right. It was incredibly effective. It looked like something much bigger than it was.
They all carry like 4 signs, and they've got flags wrapped around them. And it's quite a production. And then, of course, you have all the attention that they attract, which just makes it look that much bigger and significant, right?
That's a very good point.
Help me out with the timeline. Were you part of any of the protests?
No. By the time, because I left there for the last time in, when would that have been? 76 and 81, and that started 10 years later.
And what precipitated your leaving?
That's a long story in itself. Basically, it was, I spent my childhood growing up in that environment that was extremely violent, profoundly conservative theology. Calvinism was the cornerstone of it. That idea that we don't really have any power in that decision, that God's making the decision. And I just became convinced that between the physical violence that I was experiencing and the message that I had taken in about who I was, that basically Christ was going to come back around the year 2000. So I had another 20 some years to live my life on my terms, and then I was going to go to hell. And I had accepted that, and I didn't want to be there in that situation anymore and be out of control like I was. So,
wow. So you didn't lose your faith while you were at home because I know you left like on the second after midnight on your 18th birthday, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that you didn't become an atheist in Fred's house. No, that happened later.
No, I can recall in retrospect that there were many times that I would, he'd be preaching on some story in the Bible and me having the thoughts, well, or it could be this, like questioning it. But you didn't dare question anything out loud in that environment because that wasn't safe.
Wow.
And another huge aspect of all this was because he just spent so much time telling you why you would rebel if you rebelled. The process of rebelling was full of self-doubt. Well, why am I doing this? I'm only doing it because I don't want to serve God, or all that stuff that's part of that whole strategy that holds people in place in religion oftentimes, right?
Yeah, it's called programming. You're trapped.
Yeah. And so if I'm questioning the existence of God, or if I'm questioning the conduct or the behavior of my father, it's only because, and then fill in the blank,
right?
Because I hate God, because I'm a rebel, because I'm a heretic, whatever, right? So that process took a long time, and actually I'm still in the midst of it, which is
it's amazing how deep the tendrils go when they're planted so young and so hard in our brains, right?
That's right. And there's a lot of things. I mean, it creates a worldview for you. And there's, I use the analogy of a quilt. There's just like these millions of threads running through and crossing over and interconnecting. And you don't even realize it. So much of it's in there, and you act on it, and you confront the world. And then all of a sudden one day, circumstances or for deliberate reasons, you pick one of those threads and you hold it up and you start asking questions about it. And then that starts to unravel another piece of it, or increase your understanding and your perspective on different things, right?
Yeah, and I think Dan's right. I'm in my 50s, and my faith crisis began in Mormonism, in my very conservative, abusive family. probably a little less famous anyway than yours. And my faith crisis began because my queerness began to make itself known. So I started wanting out of the Mormon church, when I was 12 years old. That wasn't an option. It took until I could get out of the house to kind of make that decision for myself. But even in my 50s, I'm still finding landmines, right? I've kind of reflexively been an atheist, and I didn't really know the term for it since I was 12, but I'm still finding this stuff embedded because it was embedded so thoroughly. And the conditioning was so many hours a day, right, was taken up by the conditioning. So I want to ask a question that maybe is, it might be a little sensitive, and you can tell me, a little delicate. You can tell me if it is. And I've never seen anybody ask you this, but I've long wondered this. Do you think there was something about your father's sexuality that curdled him so terribly? Do you think he was externalizing a hatred of something internal?
Mark, I've heard that a number of times, suggested or and I mean, it's not like it's without precedence. There's a lot of people who are out there, virulently anti-gay, and then all of a sudden you find out that they're actually, if not gay, they're engaging in homosexual activity. The honest answer is I don't know. I know that he was obviously very sexually active with my mom.
Yes.
She actually had 16 pregnancies, but 3 in stillbirth.
So all those kids are from the same two parents.
Same two parents, no twins. It was just year after year. For 20 years, my mom was pregnant. It seemed like.
Holy shit.
She had Irish third tuplets.
Yeah, that's right. So just staying on the basic topic of sexuality. So I know that about him. He was ferocious in that sense. He spent a tremendous amount of time, especially when the older kids started growing, into puberty and started showing interest in the opposite sex. And he had a really ugly, dark, Bible-based opinion about human sexuality.
Right.
And sometimes when he was being violent with the kids, he would aim the Maddock handle at their genitals. So take of that what you will. I don't know. I mean, it was it certainly never showed itself conclusively if that was the case, right?
It's almost like his his hatred of anything gay, queer was clearly the animating force of his life. but it sounds like there was just something about human sexuality generally that perturbed him.
Yeah, and it could have all come from the Bible. I don't know, Mark. I mean, clearly the Bible's got some serious problems with sex in general, right?
How dare you, sir?
Well, if you interpret us in a certain way, sure.
Yeah.
But he wasn't as mad about the other prohibitions in Leviticus, was he? He didn't really pick at anybody. He didn't really pick at Long John Silver's for their shrimp basket, right?
He liked his filet of fish as much as the next guy. So I don't know what to say about that.
Weird. So you then you've left the family, you got out of there, you eventually found your way to atheism at some point, and you also found your way into kind of being advocating for LGBTQ rights,
right? And that was quite by accident, because when I started speaking, I actually I was driving cab out here in Cranbrook, picked up this young guy one day, and he wanted to go out to the airport, and we were chatting, and I was just thinking at the time I was starting to think about writing a book. So we got on the topic of writing, and he was a journalism student, and somehow we got to this topic of fair stories in journalism, right? And so we listed 2 or 3 sources of news that we thought did a good job of it. BBC came up and he said, "Oh yeah, I guess I just saw this show recently about this church in Kansas on the BBC."
Oh no!
And I just kind of smiled because I'm on the highway, and I said I know that church. I said, "That's my family."
Oh my God!
and he's quiet. And I kind of look in the rearview mirror, and he's got that look on. I say, "You ever been in a situation where you hear something, and you're like, I don't know, what did I just hear?"
Yeah.
He's got that confused look on his face. So I take my wallet out and hand him my license, right? And he just freaks out for the rest of the trip, and he wants to do an interview. So anyway, the story is written in the University of British Columbia newspaper, and that turns into an invitation to speak at the American Atheist Convention back in 2009. And then that turns into more opportunities to speak. And out of that, suddenly I'm getting communication from a lot of people in the gay community. And that was an education for me. I'm having to learn on the fly about what it's like to be gay and what it's like to experience my father's message and their behavior, and then the reactions from the broader community, which weren't all positive in favor of gays. I mean, you still had plenty of people, basically taking that middle ground. Well, I don't approve of the way they're doing it, but I approve of the message that, the Bible,
right.
All that nonsense. So it really raised it. And ultimately, in my opinion, did a lot of good for the gay community and for their efforts to move forward, because it really showed the ugly face.
Yeah. I think your family, in their way, as awful as it was for the people that were specifically targeted, like military families that had nothing to fucking do with anything, who are grieving over loss. I think the toxicity and the evil of that behavior really helped move the needle. And I think the Matthew Shepard thing helped move the needle because he was a kid. Yep. Right. And the murder was so brutal that anybody responding like that is clearly insane.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is to your point, Nate, that there wasn't a lot of daylight between your father's views on homosexuality and that of most conservative, particularly evangelical churches. It was tactical differences.
Exactly.
And when that was kind of exposed for what it was, like, look, we don't picket, we don't say fag, but we basically believe the same thing they do. That's an uncomfortable position to be in. Yeah. And I think he, by not virtue of any intention, he put a lot of churches in that position to have to either confront or rethink.
And just individuals, I think.
Certainly
too, right?
individuals. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, individuals. And I would say, guys, that my experience with some close friends is, we're kind of splitting hairs. Even the more liberal, ultimately,
that's fair.
Are going to come to the point where there's, in some way or another, they're justifying this idea that this particular group is less than me.
Yeah.
And whatever form that takes, it's still that position, and it's untenable. Even just using the word tolerance, to tolerate. To me, I don't even like the word tolerate, because that suggests that I'm better, but I'm going to put up with this lesser or this worse.
Right.
Yeah, I will tolerate the neighbor's barking dog. That's not the same as I accept your humanity.
That I have no basis for saying that you're different than I am.
Yeah.
In your basic humanity. So
I'm curious about so you left the church at 18, and it was obviously a difficult church to grow up in, but then they blossomed into this nationally known terror group, this nationally known hate group. How did it feel to see your family turn into this like the most hated church and the most hated people, like in the country?
Internationally?
Yeah.
Well, guys, to me, it felt like inevitable, because even though they didn't have that national stage, my father had been developing these ideas and developing his, if you will, army for from the time they were infants. And the theology was there, the ability to, the inclination and the ability to draw media attention to himself was there, and had manifested itself in other ways prior to that. It was time.
Yeah, you saw the trajectory as it was just going to get worse and worse and worse, right?
Yeah, I tried to explain this at one point to someone, and it sounded a little bit self-centered or self-aggrandizing, but I always had this in the back of my head that at some point in my life, this is going to turn public. And I'm going to have to be prepared to deal with it and I was right. It seemed inevitable because he was such a force of nature and he was so extreme and he spent so much time going into just the tiniest nuances of his perception of what the Bible said, teaching all of these, basically his family. Of course, he's going to produce an army of radicals.
Right. Yeah. Of course. And they're
what else is going to happen? Or you're going to be gone. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So as the, you left early, but many of your siblings and relatives have kind of been shedding out of the church over time, especially somewhat lately.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a community of kind of former Westboro Baptists or just the Phelps family that you kind of connect to, or, as people leave, is there some kind of, do you guys get together? Do you communicate?
Yeah, I would say that there is that. I know, in fact, Lauren Drain, who was the daughter of one of the other families that became involved, she actually started a program where when someone left, she was basically collecting money, and when someone left, she would send them a little bit of seed money.
That's.
I know that there's familial relationships between a lot of the second generation, but I would say not so much. See, what you have to understand is that one of the main threads of his theology is to constantly come back to vilifying in detail those who have left, because that's part of the process of controlling the ones that are there, right?
Right.
This is what's going to happen to you. These people are evil, and this is why they're evil, and on and on. So even the most open minds, and we're talking about younger people too, it takes time to process and to mature into greater understanding of the world. So it's good to see, and I have some connections with a few of them, but by and large, most of that relationship is between those younger groups, and it's there to some degree. They're helping each other out.
Well, we part of why we brought you on here today, Nate, was not just to talk about your personal trauma, which I'm sure someday you'd like to stop talking about, but because you're part of a conference that's coming up. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Speaking of trauma,
yeah,
yeah. Back in it would have been in late 2019. A gal named Janice Selby got in touch with me, and she was wanting to put on this conference. She's calling it the Conference on Religious Trauma, and had a bunch of speakers coming in who were specialists or who could speak to that subject of religious trauma. And then COVID happened, so the live conference was canceled. It was scheduled for April of last year. So she's started the process again of setting a virtual conference up online for May of this year. And basically they've got it just like an all-star lineup of people who have been involved in this, from Daryl Ray, who started recovering from religion back, 15 years ago.
Yeah, Daryl's a good friend of ours. He's terrific. Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me, this religious trauma syndrome is a thing that we're going to see more and more of, and I think it's an important movement overall in the community, because there's so many people who have so many different issues that manifest in so many different ways from their time in religion. And starting with Marlene Winnell's book, Leaving the Fold, that was, to me, that's kind of the cornerstone of, okay, this is a real thing, folks, and we need to start getting a handle on it and figure out how we can codify this and start helping people in real ways so that they can move past. And I just see it getting bigger because more and more people are leaving religion, right?
Yeah, and the terminology is becoming common. I think it was Marlene that coined it, right? That coined
I think so.
The phrase. And so this, I just looked at the speakers lineup, and this is like a who's who of who's been on the How to Heretic. It's Daryl Ray, Dave Warnock, Dr. Terry Daniel, who's a dear friend, Linda K. Klein, Mandisa Thomas, Marlene Winnell, you. So you can, I think if you feel like you have experienced religious trauma in your life, and you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you hadn't, probably. So it's probably well worth checking out. And it's called the Conference on Religious Trauma. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and hopefully people will want to jump in and participate.
Yeah, it's not only about people talking about their experiences where religious trauma developed, but people are talking about who are experts on it as much as one can be at this point. But it's also about trying to start educating and getting more and more therapists out there and people who can help people who have suffered religious trauma. So,
yeah.
Well, I don't know why you think you have any experience with it, but good luck. I mean,
yeah. No,
just wing it. Just get on there and wing it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. This has been great. Nate, if people want to find you, where can they find you and your voice?
Well, I'm just on Twitter and on Facebook. Facebook is just Nate Phelps, and then or Nathan Phelps, and then I think it's Nate R Phelps on Twitter. So,
all right,
great.
Very good. Well, once again, thanks so much, and good luck with the conference.
Well, thanks, you guys. It was great talking to you.
Well, friends, that is it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you were raised in a cult like we and Nate were, you can feel free to send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you have an oviviparous rabbit, you can leave us a voicemail about it at 903-88-HOW2, which is 903-884-6986. I'm also on Twitter at
Thanks to all
HowToHeretic.
our awesome patrons.
And thank you to Cody Layton, whose funeral we will not be protesting, for editing the show.
Thanks to all of you, friends, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Ta-ta.